Hello students, welcome to La Excellence IAS Kalam program, a GS Mains Answer Writing Initiative, Season 2, Episode 23. I am Kiran Mai and we will be continuing this season for about 50 episodes. Let us look at today's question. The question says, COVID-19 breakout will make global societies to become more self-seeking and inward-looking. Discuss. This question is from General Studies Paper 2 Governance topic and from the subtopic of issues relating to health. I can also place this question under General Studies Paper 1 under the topic of society and subtopic of globalization. If you look at the context in which this question is asked, you all are aware that COVID-19 has mandated restrictions of trade as well as restriction of travel of people. Okay, there is a fear among countries of bioweapons which are transmitted through goods and through people. As a result, there have been restrictions of trade as well as restriction of travel of people. Even after the lockdowns are lifted, there is an apprehension that these restrictions will be continuing in some form or the other form. Okay, there have been articles appearing in the newspapers that world will change, the societies will change, they will become more inward looking, try to become more self-reliant so that the dependence with the rest of the world is decreased and the risk of transmission of diseases from other countries through the movement of people and goods will be reduced. It is in this context that the question has been asked. Let us now look at some of the value addition points. This question has made a statement. What is the statement? That COVID-19 breakout will make global societies to become more self-seeking and inward looking. If you can get any fact or figure relevant to these statements, it will be a good value addition to this answer. For example, World Trade Organization has recently come up with a report known as Global Trade Outlook Report. In this, what has it given? It has given that the global trade will be reducing by around 12 to 32% in 2020. Okay, so what does it mean by global trade is reducing? The trade between countries is reducing. When trade reduces, the countries will be seeking more inside themselves. That is, they will try to become self-reliant. That is one good fact which can be quoted in this answer. Otherwise, you can also quote about the rapid transmission, especially across the borders. Okay. For example, COVID-19 has a reproduction number of 2 to 2.5. I already told you this concept of reproduction number. It is the number of persons an infected person can infect. If person X is infected, how many more he can infect is the reproduction number, and it is very high in COVID-19. That is what has led to the lockdowns as well as restrictions of trade. That could be another fact which could be used in this answer. So facts and figures like this which tell about the severity of COVID-19 or which are giving examples to this statement which is given in the question could be nice value additions. Apart from this, some case studies. For example, USA has ordered recently that it will impose visa sanctions if countries don't take back their illegal immigrants. Okay, so that is a way of restricting people to their country. So this is one case study which you can use. Similarly, some other case studies where local communities are being encouraged for developing a local economy, self-sufficient local economy can also be used as a value addition in this answer. Let us now look at what is to be avoided while writing this answer. We have been reading for the past few years about reversal of globalization as well as protectionist tendencies that are developing, especially in the developed world. We have been reading about them. There are many reasons for this protectionism measures taken by the countries. One important reason being saving for domestic employment. They want to protect their industries and also they want to narrow their balance of payments deficit. They say that they are being subject to unfair competition, their resources are not being protected or properly utilized for their country's development, their national security is at risk. Also, there is a fear of dumping of products by the developing countries. So there are many reasons for the protectionism by developed countries, but here the question is asking specifically about COVID-19 outbreak, and this being the reason for the self-seeking and inward-looking behavior of the countries. So try to avoid the other general reasons for protectionism, though you may use them in the introduction or conclusion as an addition, but not in the core of the answer. Let us now look at how to approach this question in the introduction, body and conclusion format. In the introduction, it is quite simple. He is talking about COVID-19. So you can describe what is COVID-19 and why it has led to such restrictions so that the world is becoming more self-seeking and inward-looking. So why it has led to such restrictions? Because of asymptomatic transmission as well as transmission through objects which we touch. Okay, so because of that, trade restrictions have been imposed, and because of high transmission rate, human travel has been restricted. So you can introduce by mentioning about what is COVID-19, what is its rate of spread, why it led to such restrictions. Coming to the body part, here you can tell about various forms of restrictions that are being done now. How trade is getting disrupted because of these restrictions, how people are looking inwards, and how people are being avoided from moving by the countries. So all these things you can write in the body part. Also, you can write about social distancing, how it as a norm has increased the distance between people. Social distancing keeps up the principle of personal hygiene, and citing this reason, it has increased the distance between people. Okay, so all this you can write in the body part. And conclusion, though you are discussing in the entire introduction as well as body part about the world becoming more self-seeking as well as inward looking, your conclusion has to be optimistic. Though we may complain about this behavior, your conclusion has to be optimistic, saying that this gives us an opportunity to revive our ancient culture as well as ancient practices, plus some of the indigenous systems of medicine will be given a boost, and so on. So your conclusion has always got to be optimistic. Now let us look at a sample answer. The person writes, COVID-19 is a viral infectious disease caused by SARS-CoV-2. He is trying to introduce COVID-19. It is capable of transmission through droplets and fomites. Droplets and fomites. What is fomites? The objects that carry droplets. Fomites are various objects that carry droplets. For example, the toys with which the children play, the table on which we write, the hand railing of the stairs. Okay, so any object which you come in contact with becomes a fomite if it is carrying the droplets of an infected person. He further writes, it is transmitted even by asymptomatic patients. So he is giving an introduction of COVID-19 and he is telling the mode of transmission, and then even asymptomatic patients can transmit the disease. What is he writing further? He has drawn a flow chart in which he has drawn that COVID-19 is leading to two things: transmission by fomites and asymptomatic transmission. Same thing, whatever he is told here, he is writing here. Why does he do that? He has drawn further flow chart saying that transmission of fomites is leading to trade restrictions. Nations calling for lockdowns is leading to trade restrictions because there is a transmission by fomites. And he also wrote a fact here that WTO projects goods trade fall by 12 to 32% in 2020. Okay, then here on this side he is writing that asymptomatic transmission is leading to passenger movement restriction after lockdown. Okay, here he is connecting the lockdown, and then he writes exit from lockdown. And how will the exit be? Here he is writing that even after exit from lockdown, the trade restrictions will lead to phytosanitary restrictions and restrictions based on the source, that is source of origin of the goods. Okay, source of origin of goods. Some trade restriction will be there because of fear of risk of transmission of other diseases also. And on this side, he is writing that because of passenger movement restriction, what will happen after exit from lockdown? Stringent visa norms will be there and non-acceptance of migrants and refugees. So this is a simple flowchart wherein he tries to tell because of this risk of transmission here and here, when lockdown is called for, trade restrictions are happening and passenger movement restriction is happening, and further phytosanitary restrictions and stringent visa norms will prevent movement even after exiting from lockdown. That is what he is trying to establish through this flowchart. What does he write further? Here if you see, he is trying to connect both the points. What are the both the points? Here he had written that after exit from lockdowns also some trade restrictions and some movement of people restrictions will be continuing, and that leading to trend of reverse globalization. So I think this is a good enough flowchart. Let us see what he writes further. States may exercise more control over corporations so that they could more effectively and easily use the resources for redistribution in exigencies without depending on international help, making them more inward looking. So he writes that states will exercise more control over the corporations so that they can use the resources for redistribution in exigencies. And then he writes, society may change owing to social distancing norms prescribed by WHO. He said that social distancing is prescribed by WHO. It may become more discriminatory, especially under the pretext of hygiene. So under the pretext of hygiene, people may start the practice of untouchability once again. So there is a risk of increase of untouchability and return of older evil practices in the society. That is what this person is trying to say here. What I felt here is he has drawn no doubt a wonderful flowchart for reverse globalization, but here he has written statements again. Instead of doing this, he could have written a tabular form. And what is happening during the restrictions? What would the world change to further? Okay, so for example, he could have written that trade restrictions would continue as phytosanitary measures, and then restriction of people as restriction of number of visa sanctions, and then here states control increasing, decreased corporations control, and here he can write social distancing and the practice of untouchability can return. Something like that would have made the whole discussion in one tabular form. Nevertheless, the flowchart is a good idea. It is really very well presented. Let us see what he writes further. COVID-19 is aiding the reverse globalization trend that began a few years ago by some advanced countries. Yes, we have discussed this. However, with the world being more interconnected than ever before, complete shutdown of boundaries may not be possible, and it could be hoped that the benefits of globalization will work for the welfare of mankind. See, I told you one way of writing optimistic conclusion. Here he is writing it in another manner. He says that complete reverse globalization or complete protectionism will not be possible in an interconnected world. You all are aware of the global supply chains, okay, value chains, which have been very much interconnected, because of which it is almost impossible that one country acts only for itself and it becomes only inward looking. Okay, it is not possible for a country to totally look inwards. That is what he is trying to say. This is also a good conclusion. So this person's answer as a whole is quite good. He has written a good introduction which has led smoothly into the body, if you observe, by giving about what is the reason for lockdown. Okay, so I think this is a good introduction with good transition into the body, and then he has written good points about how the society will be changing, and he has given a decent conclusion. Let us come to the end of our discussion. Before ending, I would like to give you all a task of writing about effects of globalization on Indian society in a short note format, about 250 words. Okay, such a note will be helpful for you before your mains preparation, so that only the current affairs you will be needing to add to that note. Let us all meet again tomorrow. Thank you.